Welcome. My name is Catherine and I want to share a true life story with you. When I walked into that office building for what I thought would be a routine business meeting, the last thing I expected was to find my son on his hands and knees scrubbing toilets in a $2,000 suit. But what happened next, when his father-in-law saw me and laughed, changed everything. Before I tell you what I did, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe so this story reaches everyone who needs to hear it. 3 months ago, I was the happiest mother alive. My son Marcus had just married the woman of his dreams, or so I thought. Victoria Chen came from money, old money, the kind that builds wings on hospitals and has streets named after the family. The Chens owned half the commercial real estate in Seattle. When Marcus told me he was marrying into that family, I was thrilled for him. Marcus had worked so hard to build his career. He started as a junior accountant at a small firm, worked nights to get his CPA, then his MBA. By the time he was 30, he was pulling in $180,000 a year as a senior financial analyst at Morrison & Associates. Not chin money, but respectable. Earned. His. The wedding was elegant. Tasteful. I'd offered to contribute, but Richard Chen, Victoria's father, had insisted on paying for everything. Catherine, you're family now. Let me do this. It would be my honor. He'd smiled warmly, shaken my hand with both of his. I'd thought he was generous. I'd thought he was welcoming my son into their world. I should have seen the signs. At the reception, Richard had made a toast. To my daughter Victoria, who has chosen to follow her heart. And to Marcus, who we welcome into the Chen family. May you both build a life together filled with opportunity. The way he'd said opportunity had a strange emphasis I couldn't quite place. But the champagne was flowing. Marcus looked happier than I'd ever seen him, and I dismissed it. The first month after the wedding, Marcus called me every Sunday like always. We'd talk about his work, about Victoria, about their plans to buy a house. Everything seemed perfect. Then the calls became less frequent. Every 2 weeks. Then once a month. When I'd call him, he'd answer but sound rushed, distracted. Sorry, Mom. Things are just really busy at work. I'll call you soon, I promise. I told myself it was normal. Newlyweds needed space to build their life together. I was probably being an overbearing mother. So I gave him room. 2 months after the wedding, I got a text from Marcus. Mom, I've got some exciting news. I'm making a career change. Going to work for Victoria's father's company. It's an amazing opportunity. I'll tell you all about it soon. A career change. I'd felt a flutter of concern in my chest. Marcus loved his job at Morrison & Associates. He'd worked so hard to get there. But families did business together. Maybe Richard was offering him something better. Something that would set him up for life. I texted back my congratulations and waited for details. The details never came. The calls stopped completely after that. I'd text Marcus and get short responses. Busy. Things are good. Talk soon. When I tried calling, it would go to voicemail. I told myself he was adjusting to a new job, new responsibilities. But mothers know. Something was wrong. I could feel it. Last week, I decided to surprise him. I was in Seattle anyway for a meeting with a supplier for my interior design business. Marcus and Victoria lived in a condo downtown, and I thought I'd stop by with some of his favorite cookies I'd baked. Maybe we could have coffee, talk, reconnect. I arrived at their building around 2 in the afternoon. The doorman called up to their unit. No answer. Mrs. Hayes, they might not be home. Would you like to leave a message? I was about to leave when I had an idea. Actually, do you know where Marcus works? Victoria's father's company? I wanted to surprise him there instead. The doorman's expression changed. Just for a second, something flickered across his face. Pity? Discomfort? Chen Properties has their main office at 1500 4th Avenue. The Columbia Tower. I thanked him and walked the 6 blocks to the address. The Columbia Tower was impressive, gleaming glass and steel, 76 stories of Seattle skyline. Chen Properties occupied floors 40 through 45. I rode the elevator to the 45th floor, where the receptionist had told me the executive offices were located. I'm here to see Marcus Hayes, I told the woman at the desk. Professional, polished, sitting behind a marble reception counter. She looked confused. I'm sorry, I don't have anyone by that name in our directory. Could he be with one of our subsidiaries? He works for Richard Chen. He's Richard's son-in-law. Her expression changed immediately. Oh. Oh yes. Mr. Hayes. The way she said it made my stomach drop. He's not on this floor. You'll want to go down to the basement level. Facilities management. Basement level. Facilities management. My son, the CPA with an MBA, was working in the basement. I took the elevator down, my hands gripping my purse tighter with each descending floor. The basement level opened to a stark hallway, concrete floors, fluorescent lighting. Signs pointed to maintenance, storage, facilities office. I followed the signs, my heels clicking on the hard floor. The smell hit me as I rounded a corner. Industrial cleaner, harsh and chemical. And there, through an open door marked men's restroom, I saw him. Marcus. My son. On his hands and knees. Scrubbing a toilet. He was wearing a suit. Not a maintenance uniform. A suit. Expensive, tailored. One I recognized from his wedding photos. The jacket was draped over a cleaning cart beside him. His white shirt sleeves were rolled up. His tie was loosened. And he was scrubbing a toilet with a brush, methodically, like he'd done it 1,000 times. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what I was seeing. Then I heard voices approaching from down the hallway. Men's voices, loud, confident, coming closer. Told you it would work. 3 months and he's completely broken in. Richard Chen's voice. Victoria's father. I stepped back into a doorway, hidden, but with a clear view of the restroom where Marcus was working. Richard walked past with 2 other men in expensive suits. They stopped right at the restroom door. Richard looked in and laughed. Actually laughed. There he is. My son-in-law, the Harvard of Janitorial Services. The other men chuckled. Marcus looked up from the toilet, his face blank. No emotion. Just looked at his father-in-law and nodded slightly before returning to his work. Richard, I still don't understand why you've got him doing this, one of the men said. The kid had a real job before, didn't he? Richard leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, smiling. He did. Made decent money too. But see, that's exactly the problem. When Victoria told me she wanted to marry him, I knew we had to handle it carefully. Can't have some outsider thinking he's equal to a Chen just because he married my daughter. My blood ran cold. So you're teaching him his place? The other man asked. Exactly. First week, I had him doing data entry. Basic stuff, but I kept rejecting his work, telling him it wasn't good enough. Second week, moved him to mailroom. Made sure he understood every Chen Properties employee is valuable, from the top to the bottom. Third week, facilities management. And here we are. He cleans toilets, empties trash, does whatever maintenance tells him to do. And he just accepts it? The man sounded genuinely curious. Richard's smile widened. He's married to my daughter. They live in a condo I own. He drives a car registered in Victoria's name. His name isn't on anything. I made sure of that. The prenup was airtight. If he leaves Victoria, he leaves with nothing. No assets, no alimony, nothing. And Victoria knows to support whatever I tell her. So yes, he accepts it. Because he has no choice. What about his old job? Oh, I made sure that bridge was burned. Called his old boss personally, told him Marcus had accepted a position with Chen Properties and wouldn't be available. By the time Marcus realized what was happening, they'd already hired his replacement. Nowhere for him to go back to. The third man laughed. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So he's just stuck cleaning your toilets. It's all he knows how to do now, Richard said, and they all laughed. It's all he knows how to do. They walked away, their voices fading down the hallway. I stood in that doorway, shaking, rage building inside me like nothing I'd ever felt before. I stepped out and walked to the restroom. Marcus was still scrubbing. Hadn't heard me approach. Marcus. He jumped, nearly dropped the brush, spun around. When he saw me, his face went through a dozen emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, shame, horror, resignation. Mom. His voice cracked. What are you doing here? I walked into that bathroom and pulled my son to his feet. Up close, I could see he'd lost weight. His suit hung looser than it should. Dark circles under his eyes. Hands red and raw from chemicals. What are they doing to you? I kept my voice steady, but my hands were shaking. Mom, it's not what it looks like. I'm just helping out with some projects. Don't lie to me, Marcus. I heard Richard. I heard everything. How long has this been going on? He looked away, couldn't meet my eyes. Since 3 weeks after the wedding. 3 weeks. I felt sick. And you didn't call me? Didn't tell me? What was I supposed to say? His voice rose, then dropped to barely a whisper. That I let myself get trapped? That I was stupid enough to sign every document Richard put in front of me because I loved his daughter and wanted to prove I was worthy of being part of their family? That I gave up everything, my job, my apartment, my car, everything, because Richard said we'd be stronger as a united family. Tears were running down his face now. My son, my strong, capable son, crying in a bathroom while wearing a $2,000 suit he'd been scrubbing toilets in. I can't leave, Mom. If I leave Victoria, I have nothing. No job, no home, no car, no savings because I put everything into their joint accounts that I can't access without her signature. Richard made sure of that. And Victoria. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. Victoria does whatever her father tells her. She says it's temporary, that I just need to prove myself, that once her father sees I'm committed to the family, things will change. But it's been 3 months and it just keeps getting worse. I pulled him into a hug, this grown man who I'd raised by myself after his father died, who I'd worked 3 jobs to put through college, who'd never asked me for anything and had built a life through pure determination and hard work. Listen to me very carefully, I said into his ear. You are getting out of this. Today. Right now. And I am going to make sure the Chens regret every single thing they've done to you. Mom, you don't understand. Richard Chen is worth $400 million. He owns half of Seattle. He has lawyers, connections, power. What can we possibly do? I pulled back and looked at my son. Marcus, do you remember what I did before I started my interior design business? He looked confused. You were in real estate, I think? Property management. Close. I was a commercial real estate attorney for 15 years. I worked for one of the biggest firms in the Pacific Northwest. I specialized in exactly one thing: finding and exploiting loopholes in property law, zoning regulations, and commercial contracts. I was very, very good at it. I only left because I wanted to do something creative, something that made me happy instead of just wealthy. I'd never told Marcus exactly how successful I'd been. Never mentioned the cases I'd won, the developers I'd destroyed, the fortunes I'd made and unmade with a pen and a knowledge of property law that most lawyers would kill for. I'd wanted him to build his own life, his own success, without living in my shadow. But Richard Chen had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd hurt my son. And he'd laughed about it. Go upstairs, I told Marcus. Find Victoria. Tell her you're going home sick. Pack a bag, take only what's yours, and meet me at my hotel. The Fairmont Olympic. Room 847. Don't tell her where you're going. Don't tell anyone. Just come. Mom. Trust me, Marcus. For once in the last 3 months, trust someone who actually has your best interests at heart. Can you do that? He nodded slowly. Okay. Okay, yes. Good. Now go. I watched him put on his jacket, straighten his tie, wipe his face. He walked out of that bathroom with his shoulders back, trying to reclaim some dignity. I waited until he disappeared around the corner. Then I took out my phone and made a call I hadn't made in 5 years. Davidson and Wright. How may I direct your call? This is Catherine Hayes. I need to speak with Thomas Davidson. Tell him it's urgent. Thomas Davidson had been my mentor when I was a young attorney, later my partner, and eventually one of my closest friends. When I'd left the firm to pursue interior design, he told me I was crazy to walk away from a partnership that would have made me millions. But he'd also said if I ever needed anything at all, I should call. I was calling. Catherine Hayes. His voice boomed through the phone. I heard you were in town. Please tell me you're coming back to law. I've got 3 cases right now that need your mind. Thomas, I need a favor. A big one. His tone changed immediately. All business. Talk to me. I need everything you can find on Chen Properties and Richard Chen. Every property they own, every zoning permit, every contract, every business deal. And I need it by tomorrow morning. That's a lot of information, Catherine. This going to be a problem? It's going to be war. He laughed. Delighted. I've missed you. I'll have my team start pulling files immediately. Should I block out my calendar? Block out the next month. And Thomas? I need one more thing. I need you to file paperwork today, before close of business, establishing Hayes Property Solutions, LLC. Make me the sole owner and registered agent. Catherine, what are you planning? I'm going to teach Richard Chen that there are things more dangerous than money. Like a mother protecting her son. I hung up and walked out of that basement. Took the elevator back to the 45th floor. Marched past the receptionist who tried to stop me. Found Richard Chen's office. Corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. The kind of office that screamed wealth and power. I knocked once and walked in without waiting for an answer. Richard looked up from his mahogany desk, annoyed at the interruption. Then he recognized me. His expression shifted to something like amusement. Mrs. Hayes. What a pleasant surprise. Are you here to see Marcus? I'm afraid he's busy with some very important facilities work right now. He smiled. That same smile I'd seen in the hallway. Cruel, satisfied, completely confident. I closed the door behind me and walked to his desk. Placed both hands on the polished surface and leaned forward. Mr. Chen, I'm going to give you one chance. One single opportunity to do the right thing. Release my son from whatever hellish contract you trapped him in. Give him a fair settlement. Let him walk away with his dignity intact. Richard actually laughed. Leaned back in his chair like I'd just told the funniest joke he'd heard all year. Mrs. Hayes, I don't think you understand how things work in this city. Your son married into one of Seattle's most prominent families. He should be grateful for the opportunity to serve the Chen family in whatever capacity we deem appropriate. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. So that's your answer? You're going to keep my son as your personal servant? Humiliate him? Destroy everything he's worked for? I'm teaching him the value of humility. And yes, that's exactly what I'm going to keep doing. Because I can. Because he's signed contracts that give me that right. And because there's not a damn thing you or he can do about it. He picked up his phone. Now please leave before I have security remove you. I straightened up, smoothed my jacket. Mr. Chen, I practiced commercial real estate law for 15 years. I destroyed developers, bankrupted corporations, and made grown men cry in court. I did it so well that I retired at 45 because I never needed to work again. I left because I wanted to create beautiful things instead of destroying arrogant men. But you've just reminded me why I was so good at destruction. It's because I loved watching powerful men realize too late that they'd made a fatal mistake. His smile faltered slightly. Is that a threat? No, Mr. Chen. It's a fact. You're going to hear from my attorneys. And then you're going to regret every single thing you've done to my son. I walked out of his office, past the receptionist, into the elevator. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Certain. I'd spent 5 years creating beautiful spaces for clients, finding joy in colors and textures and design. But I'd spent 15 years before that destroying people who thought they were untouchable. Richard Chen was about to learn which version of me was more dangerous. If you're enjoying this story, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. This story is far from over. Back at my hotel, I ordered room service and waited for Marcus. He arrived an hour later with a single duffel bag, looking exhausted and defeated. I made him shower, change into clean clothes, and eat something. Then we talked. He told me everything. Every humiliating detail. How Richard had convinced him to quit his job, promising an executive position at Chen Properties. How the executive position had turned out to be data entry, then mail sorting, then janitorial work. How Victoria had stopped sleeping in their bedroom, taking the master suite while Marcus slept in the guest room. How he'd wake at 5 a.m. to clean office buildings before the employees arrived, so fewer people would see him. He told me it was a test, Marcus said, staring at his hands. That all Chen men had to prove themselves by working from the bottom up. That even Victoria's brothers had done it. But I found out later they never worked a day in facilities. They were given vice president titles right out of college. It was always just me. Just a test to see how much abuse I'd take. The prenup, I said. Do you have a copy? He pulled it from his bag. Victoria made me sign it the day before the wedding. Said it was standard. Just protecting both our interests. I didn't even read it carefully. I was so in love. So grateful her family was accepting me. I read through it. My legal training kicked in immediately. Years of experience scanning for the weak points, the exploitable clauses. And there they were. Multiple problems. Potentially illegal problems. Marcus, this prenup was drafted by Chen's personal attorney. Did you have independent legal counsel review it? No. Richard said it wasn't necessary, that it was just a formality. In Washington state, prenuptial agreements can be invalidated if both parties didn't have independent legal representation and full financial disclosure. Did Victoria disclose her full financial situation to you before you signed? He shook his head. I knew her family was wealthy, but I had no idea about specific amounts. Richard just said we'd all be taken care of. I pulled out my phone and called Thomas Davidson again. Thomas, I'm sending you a prenuptial agreement. I need you to tear it apart. Look for every possible invalidation clause. Lack of independent counsel, insufficient disclosure, unconscionable terms, anything. How fast do you need it? Yesterday. I'll have someone on it tonight. Catherine, what did this family do to Marcus? They tried to break him. They failed. Because they didn't know his mother was me. Thomas laughed. Poor bastards. They have no idea what's coming. Over the next 3 days, Thomas and his team worked around the clock. I worked with them, those old skills coming back like I'd never left the law. We built a case that was airtight, multifaceted, and designed to hit Richard Chen where it would hurt him most. His business, his reputation, and his wallet. On day 4, I received the information I'd been waiting for. Thomas called me at 6 a.m., his voice excited. Catherine, you're not going to believe what we found. Chen Properties has been operating under multiple zoning violations for the last 8 years. They converted 3 commercial buildings to mixed-use residential without proper permits. The structures at 1500 4th Avenue, the Columbia Tower where their offices are, has been in violation of fire safety codes for 6 months. And get this, Richard Chen has been using company funds to pay for personal expenses, including Victoria's wedding. That's corporate malfeasance. We can go to the SEC. Keep digging, I said. I want everything. There's more. The prenup Marcus signed is entirely unenforceable. Lack of independent counsel, no financial disclosure, and several clauses that are unconscionable under Washington law. We can have it nullified within a week. Do it. File the paperwork today. Already done. Sent the notification to Chen's attorneys an hour ago. I smiled. First blood. My phone rang almost immediately. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Hayes, this is Robert Morrison from Morrison & Chen Attorneys. I represent Richard Chen and Chen Properties. I'm calling to inform you that if you continue with this frivolous legal action against my client, we will pursue a harassment claim. Mr. Morrison, I'm calling from my hotel room. I haven't filed any legal action yet. Your client was notified of a prenuptial invalidation motion filed by my son's attorney. That's a separate matter. But I'm so glad you called, because it saves me the trouble of reaching out to you. Mrs. Hayes, I'm going to be filing several complaints with the city's Building and Zoning Commission regarding Chen Properties violations. I'll also be notifying the SEC about potential corporate fraud. And I'll be filing a civil suit on behalf of my son for intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, and unlawful imprisonment. Silence on the other end. You can't be serious, Morrison finally said. I'm extremely serious. I spent 15 years practicing real estate law, Mr. Morrison. I know exactly what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to give you the same offer I gave your client. Release my son from any claims under the prenuptial agreement. Provide him with a fair settlement of $500,000 for the emotional distress and career damage your client caused. Issue a written apology. Do this, and I'll drop all pending complaints and lawsuits. That's extortion. No, that's a settlement offer. You have 48 hours to respond. After that, I proceed with everything. And Mr. Morrison? I'm going to win. I always win. Tell Richard Chen that Catherine Hayes is no longer asking. I'm telling. I hung up. Marcus looked at me from across the hotel room. Mom, what if they fight this? What if they have better lawyers? Then I'll destroy them in court. Marcus, I didn't want to go back to this world. I left it because the constant fighting, the egos, the destruction, it was exhausting. But I was the best at it for a reason. And Richard Chen just reminded me why. The 48 hours passed. No response from Chen's attorneys. So I filed everything. Zoning complaints with the city. Documentation of fire safety violations. A complaint with the SEC regarding misuse of corporate funds. A civil lawsuit on Marcus's behalf seeking $2 million in damages. And I leaked every single violation to a journalist friend who worked for the Seattle Times. The story ran 3 days later. Front page, business section. Chen Properties faces multiple violations, SEC investigation. My phone rang at 7 a.m. Thomas Davidson, laughing so hard he could barely speak. Catherine, holy shit. Richard Chen's stock dropped 15% yesterday. His board is demanding answers. And get this, 2 of his biggest investors are pulling out. The violations you found triggered clauses in their investment agreements. He could lose hundreds of millions. Good, I said simply. His attorney called me 6 times yesterday. They want to settle. Not yet. Let him suffer a little longer. Catherine, you're enjoying this. I really am. Another week passed. The SEC investigation gained traction. The City Building Commission issued stop work orders on 3 Chen Properties projects. Richard's reputation was crumbling. Marcus started seeing a therapist to deal with the psychological damage from his 3 months of abuse. He was slowly rebuilding his confidence, his sense of self. He'd reached out to his old employer at Morrison & Associates. They were interested in bringing him back. Victoria called him once, crying, begging him to drop the lawsuits. You're destroying my father. My whole family. Please. Marcus. I love you. Marcus had looked at the phone, then at me. She never said she loved me while I was cleaning toilets. He hung up. 2 weeks after I filed the lawsuits, Robert Morrison called me directly. Mrs. Hayes, my client is prepared to settle. I'm listening. $250,000 to Marcus. Full release from the prenuptial agreement. Written apology. And all parties agree to move forward without further legal action. Not good enough. $500,000. Public apology issued through a press release. Richard Chen personally signs a statement acknowledging the emotional and professional harm he caused my son. And Victoria files for divorce, allowing Marcus to walk away with no further claims or contact. That's outrageous. That's my offer. You have 24 hours. 23 hours later, Morrison called back. We accept your terms. Smart choice. Draw up the paperwork. I want it signed by end of business tomorrow. The next day, Marcus and I sat in a conference room at Davidson & Wright. Richard Chen sat across from us, his attorney beside him. Richard looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Dark circles under his eyes. Defeated posture. The confident, cruel man from the Columbia Tower was gone. Victoria was there too. She couldn't look at Marcus. Kept her eyes on the table. We signed the papers. Richard's hand shook as he wrote his signature on the apology statement. The check for $500,000 was placed in front of Marcus. I hope you're satisfied, Richard said quietly. You've destroyed my reputation. My business. My family. I leaned forward. Mr. Chen, I gave you a chance to do the right thing. You laughed at me. You told me there was nothing I could do. You were wrong. But here's the thing you need to understand. I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself the moment you thought it was acceptable to humiliate my son. I just made sure everyone else knew what kind of man you really are. I was teaching him. You were torturing him. You were breaking him down because you enjoyed having power over someone you considered beneath you. That's not teaching. That's cruelty. And cruelty always has consequences. We stood to leave. Marcus picked up the check, that piece of paper that represented justice, vindication, freedom. At the door I turned back. One more thing, Mr. Chen. If you or anyone in your family ever contacts my son again, for any reason, I will file every remaining complaint I've been holding back. And there are more. Many more. I only used a fraction of what I found. The rest is insurance. So I suggest you take this lesson to heart and stay far, far away from the Hayes family. We walked out of that conference room. Out of the building. Into the Seattle sunlight. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Mom, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me. That's what family does. Real family. We protect each other. We don't tear each other down to feel powerful. All those years you told me you left law because you wanted to be creative. Was that true?" I thought about it. It was true. But it was also because I was tired of being the person who destroyed others, even when they deserved it. I wanted to build beautiful things instead. But Marcus, when someone hurts my child, I'll become that person again. Every single time. Without hesitation. He hugged me. Right there on the sidewalk. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too. Now, what are you going to do with your life?" He smiled. Actually smiled. First real smile I'd seen in months. "I'm going back to Morrison & Associates. They offered me my old job back, plus a raise. And I'm finding my own apartment. One with my name on the lease. And I'm going to rebuild my life. The right way this time. That's my son." We walked down the street together. Marcus with his settlement check and his freedom. Me with the satisfaction of knowing I'd protected my child from people who'd tried to break him. 3 months later, I attended Marcus's housewarming party. Small apartment, but it was his. Earned with his own work. Furnished with his own money. Every decision his own. He'd been promoted again at Morrison & Associates. His boss had apologized for not fighting harder to keep him when Richard Chen called. "We thought we were doing what was best for you, letting you move to a family business. We didn't realize what was really happening. It won't happen again." Marcus had also started dating. A woman named Rachel who worked in marketing. She was kind, funny, genuine. She looked at Marcus like he mattered. Like he was valuable. Like he was worthy of respect. At the party, Marcus pulled me aside. "Mom, I got something for you. A thank you gift." He handed me a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet with an engraving. "To the woman who taught me that real strength is knowing when to fight and how to win. Love, Marcus." I may have cried. Just a little. "There's one more thing," Marcus said. "I found out what happened to Richard Chen after the settlements." "Oh." He lost 3 major investors. Had to sell off 2 properties to cover the losses. His board forced him to step down as CEO. Victoria divorced him too, apparently. Took his side in the whole thing. Blamed him for ruining her marriage. She's dating some tech executive now. I thought about Richard Chen, the powerful man who'd laughed at me in that basement hallway. Who'd said my son only knew how to clean toilets. Who'd been so confident in his control over others. "Good," I said simply. "Mom, do you regret it? Going back to that world, being that person again?" I looked around the apartment at Marcus's new life. His genuine smile. His confidence returning. His future bright with possibility. Not for a second. That night, alone in my hotel room before flying back home, I thought about everything that had happened. 4 months ago, I'd been a happy mother who thought her son was building a beautiful life. Then I'd found him on his hands and knees scrubbing toilets, humiliated and broken by people who should have welcomed him as family. I'd gone to war. Used skills I'd locked away. Became someone I'd tried to leave behind. And I'd won. But the real victory wasn't the settlement or the destroyed reputation or the public apology. The real victory was seeing Marcus free. Seeing him smile. Seeing him rebuild his life on his own terms. That's what mothers do. We fight. We protect. We win. Not because we enjoy the fight, but because we love our children more than we fear becoming the villain in someone else's story. Richard Chen learned that lesson too late. He'd thought money and power made him untouchable. He'd forgotten that there are forces in this world more dangerous than wealth. Like a mother's love. Like a mother's rage. Like a mother who knows exactly how to dismantle your entire empire and will do it without hesitation if you hurt her child. I closed my laptop and looked out at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere out there, Richard Chen was learning to live with less power, less money, less respect. Learning that cruelty has consequences. And my son was learning to live again. Really live. Free and unbroken. I'd make that trade every single time. 6 months after the settlement, I received a message on LinkedIn. From Richard Chen. Mrs. Hayes, I wanted to reach out and apologize personally. Not because I'm required to, but because I've had time to reflect on my actions. What I did to Marcus was unforgivable. I convinced myself I was teaching him a lesson, but I was really just exercising power because I could. You were right about me. I was cruel. And I paid a heavy price for that cruelty. I hope Marcus is doing well. I hope he's found happiness. And I hope someday he can forgive me, though I wouldn't blame him if he couldn't. I've started therapy. I'm working on understanding why I felt the need to break someone down to feel superior. It's not easy to look at yourself and see a monster. But that's what I was to your son. Thank you for stopping me. Thank you for being the kind of parent who fights for their child. I wish I'd been that kind of parent to Victoria. Maybe things would have turned out differently. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it, block him, never think about Richard Chen again. But another part recognized something in those words. Genuine remorse. Real self-awareness. The beginning of change. I wrote back, Mr. Chen, I hope your therapy helps. I hope you become a better person. But I also hope you never forget what you did and how it felt to lose everything because of your own cruelty. That feeling should stay with you. It should inform every decision you make going forward. Marcus is thriving. He's happy. He's building a life that has nothing to do with your family or your money. That's all you need to know. I hit send and closed the laptop. Some people change. Some people learn. I didn't know if Richard Chen would truly become better, or if this was just another manipulation. But it didn't matter anymore. He was Victoria's problem now, not mine. Not Marcus's. A year after everything happened, Marcus got engaged. To Rachel. The proposal was simple, genuine, done in a park where they'd had their first date. No spectacle. No performance. Just two people who loved each other choosing to build a life together. I helped plan the wedding. Small ceremony, close friends and family only. Marcus insisted on paying for everything himself. Mom, I need to do this my way. Can you understand? I absolutely can. The wedding was beautiful. Simple. Real. Marcus and Rachel wrote their own vows. He promised to respect her, honor her, see her as an equal partner in all things. She promised the same. No pretense. No power games. Just love. As I watched them exchange rings, I thought about that day in the Columbia Tower basement. The moment I'd seen my son on his hands and knees. The moment I'd heard Richard Chen laugh and say, "It's all he knows how to do." Richard had been wrong. So completely wrong. Marcus knew how to love. How to work hard. How to rebuild after being broken. How to forgive without forgetting. How to choose partners who saw his value instead of trying to diminish it. Those were the things Marcus knew how to do. And I knew how to protect him. How to fight. How to win. How to tear down empires built on cruelty and arrogance. Mother and son. Both stronger than anyone had expected. Both victorious in the ways that mattered. At the reception, Marcus gave a speech. Thanked everyone for coming. Thanked Rachel for choosing him. Then he looked at me. I want to thank my mom. A year ago I was lost. Broken. Trapped in a situation I didn't know how to escape. She found me. She fought for me. She reminded me that I was worth fighting for. Mom, you've always been my hero. But last year, you became my warrior. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. The room applauded. I wiped tears from my face. Smiled at my son. After the wedding, after the guests left, after Marcus and Rachel drove away to start their honeymoon, I sat alone in the empty venue. The decorator in me noticed the flower arrangements, the lighting, the way everything had come together beautifully. But the mother in me just felt grateful. Grateful I'd been in Seattle that day. Grateful I'd followed my instinct to surprise Marcus at work. Grateful I'd heard Richard's words in that hallway. Because if I hadn't, Marcus might still be there. Still cleaning toilets. Still being broken down day after day. Still believing he deserved that treatment because he'd signed some papers and loved the wrong person. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo someone had taken of Marcus and me at the wedding. Both smiling. Both free. Both victorious. Then I texted Marcus, even though he was on his honeymoon and probably wouldn't see it for days. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I'd fight that battle again 1,000 times. Love, Mom. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Marcus had responded. I know you would. That's what makes you the best mom in the world. Love you forever. I put my phone away and walked out into the night. The Seattle skyline glittered in the distance. Somewhere in that city, Richard Chen was living a smaller life. Learning his lessons the hard way. And my son was starting his honeymoon. Happy. Free. Unbroken. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a mother who refuses to let her child suffer. Sometimes it's knowing when to fight and how to win. Sometimes it's watching your child smile again and knowing you made that possible. I'd spent 15 years of my life destroying people in court. I'd walked away from that world because I was tired of the fight. But when Richard Chen hurt my son, I remembered why I'd been so good at it. Because some fights are worth having. Some battles are worth winning. And some people need to learn that money and power don't make you untouchable. They just make you a bigger target. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and share it with anyone who needs to hear it. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what you would have done in my situation. Thank you for watching, and remember, never underestimate a parent protecting their child. We're always more dangerous than we look.